What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Well, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tack Theratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles in Fort Lauderdale?
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, Macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you are watching us on Rockfin or Rumble or listening wherever podcasts are served, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. You can connect with me directly through the website. Macroaggressions.io is the place to go. And you can check out everything that we're doing as far as books, shows, all that good stuff. It's all there. Have you rated the show? I do appreciate it. If you think we've earned 5 stars, please take like 5 seconds to do that. The algorithms say that it matters, so we'll play that game as long as we have to. The audiobook for The Octopus of Global Control is available wherever audiobooks are served, which would mean Audible, Amazon, iTunes, Spotify is in the game now with audiobooks, and then they syndicate out to a bunch of different places. So if you get your audiobooks from some obscure place, check there. They might have it. They probably do have it. So if The Octopus of Global Control, 23-hour audiobook, it's 540 pages. So, it took a while to read. It didn't take 7 years to do it, but it did take a while. And big thanks to Graham Dunlop from Grimerica, who is the voice of that. So you're going to get, you won't get my insanity for 23 hours. You'll get a nice, sweet Canadian voice explaining to you how the world is totally fucked. Enjoy it, please. Thank you. Hey, our sponsors, thank you to them. They make the show happen. We couldn't do it without Chemical Free Body, who've been with us from the beginning, making outstanding supplements that actually work. Green 85 is a part of my daily routine. It could be a part of yours if you are committed to improving your health. There's nothing worse than feeling bad. And when you're sick, you'd give anything to feel healthy again. So why don't you just be proactive and make sure you don't get sick? Why don't you try that? I haven't been sick in years, knocking on wood, but I really haven't. And I think it's because of the supplements that I take. I think it's because I take care of myself. I'm pretty cautious about the foods that I eat. Not perfect, of course, but Chemical Free Body has been part of that. So if you're so inclined, if you think you want to take a look and find some supplements that work, or get the Detox Bundle or the Pat Miletich Super Soldier Formula, it's all there. ChemicalFreeBody.com is the place to go. And the discount code on your way out is Macro. That'll save some money. Also, Legal Shield. I mean, listen, $30 a month for an attorney? Like, honestly, that's the greatest deal in the world. And when you know that your attorney can do all of your legal documents for you, your last will and testament, your medical directive, your financial power of attorney, you've got to have that stuff. You just have to. I mean, if you die without that stuff, your family is in so much trouble. They have to deal with the state. They have to deal with probate. They have all kinds of stuff that winds up popping up. You're gone. You don't have to think about it, but they do. So do this. Just go to the website that they built for us and read about it. If it's something that you like, pull the trigger on it. It's don'tgetpushedaround.com. That's the domain site that you can use to go check it out. And what'll happen is when you sign up, you'll wind up getting a Legal Shield app. And on that, it's like buttons, like push this button to talk to an attorney in your area. What would you like to talk to them about? And it's like a drop-down menu of all the things. Oh, legal documents? Boom. This? Oh, okay. Click, click, click. Send it over to them. And you get an email. An attorney will call you in less than 24 hours. You get a call the next day. Hey, when would you like to schedule this to come in and knock it all out? I mean, you can do this in the first month. You could essentially pay $30 for this if you wanted to. So I'll tell you, you'll get no hard sell from me, but boy, I just think it's the best money you'll spend. And it really just opens up a ton of opportunities for you in ways that you can use this. So do this. Just go to don'tgetpushedaround.com and read about it. See what you think. If you carry a gun and you need that extra documentation, they have that. If you need the ID shield, they have that. They have a small business plan. They have all kinds of different features you can add on. That's why I say to go to the website and just see. There might be something that I don't even talk about that you're like, oh my God, I totally need this and I didn't even know it was an option. There's a lot going on over there. Don'tgetpushedaround.com. Well, now that we got the business out of the way, I am going to attempt like hell to make banking interesting. I think I might be able to do it. It's not the easiest task in the world. I admit it. But have you heard of the great bank run of 2024? Oh, you haven't? Well, it's because it hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. And when I lay this case out, you're going to be incentivized to reevaluate the relationship that you have with your bank. And by incentivized, it might mean get your money out of there to the extent that you can, meaning that in two ways. First, it's kind of hard to pull yourself out of this banking system after you've built your entire life around it. I get that. But also, when I say pull your money out, like physically pull your money out, try that. Go down to your bank and try and pull, I don't know, if you've got try to pull $5,000 out in cash today. They'll panic. They'll ask you a million questions. They'll tell you that they don't have the money on hand. They'll ask you, do you really want to? I mean, they'll throw up every roadblock that you can think of to try and convince you that you don't really need to do this. They'll ask you very personal questions that it's none of their business. So when I say get your money out of the bank, I mean it in every way that you can. Get yourself less dependent on the bank, because we found the plan and it's not good. And it's here. I'm not making up the plan. We found it. We found the documentation for it. We know how this is going to play out. If you are listening to this in, say, it's the middle of 2024, you don't normally call your shot on a bank run halfway through the year and say it's going to happen this year. You normally like to give yourself 12 months. Look, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen actually in 2024. Do you want to be wrong by a day? Probably not. So why don't you act accordingly? So in order to wrap your head around how the great bank run of 2024 happened, you're going to actually have to go back about a decade to 2014 to understand what the G20 bank bail-in law did, and you will understand that it lit a 10-year fuse on the banking system, maybe 11 years. I don't know. It's hard to tell exactly how much time you have left, but I think that once you take a look at what they did in 2014, you might be surprised that the banking system is even still here. Okay, because I want you to understand what they did. It's not in your best interest, of course. The bankers never make it in your best interest. They did it for them. And when you're talking about the G20, this is a group of nations that got together and came up with something called the bank bail-in law. And of course, they don't really talk about it too much. You know what a bailout is, right? A bailout is what we had in 2008 in America with the Wall Street crowd, where they said, if you don't give us $700 billion by Monday morning, there'll be civil war. And you never have to twist the government's arm too hard to convince them to give money to banks, because they're all intertwined with the banks anyway. But even the White House was like, that's a lot of money and that's not a lot of time. And why do we need to do this? And Hank Paulson and all the guys, it's all coming down. It's unless you do this. And so the government did give them that money. They bailed them out. It came from outside of the banks. That money was a bailout. Bail-ins is when it comes from inside the banks, when the banks help themselves in order for the management of the bank to survive. See, you have to understand, the managers of the bank run it like a casino, right? It's just leveraged debt, fractional reserve banking, which means you can lend out 9 times more money than you have. I mean, they're playing a confidence game every single day, which is, we hope to God that not more than like 2% of our depositors come in and demand their money back today, because if they do, then I made up 2%, but I don't know exactly what the number is, but there's some threshold at which if that number of people come in demanding their money, we ain't got it. You know, maybe it's 10%. All right, they're lending out 9 times more money than they have. Whatever it is, it's not like they have $1 million in the bank and then they loan $1 million out. No, they have $1 million in bank and they loan out $9 million. So if something goes wrong, the bank can become insolvent a lot faster than you can, right? You're not loaning out money you don't have. You can't do that. That's called money laundering or counterfeiting. When the banks do it, it's called fractional reserve lending. When you do it, they put you in Pelican Bay. So you have to understand sort of the difference between a bank bailout, when the government comes, that money comes externally into the bank to bail it out, or bail in, which is the money was already in the bank. The management class that's running that bank like a casino has done such a bad job with that they've gone broke. And in order to remain solvent, they look around for money. And the money that they find closest to them is yours as a depositor. And so what they do is they then steal that money. And that's legal for them to do it. And that's the problem, is that that's legal. And it would be one thing if, your mother needed to dip into your account and borrow some money. It's quite another thing when you don't even know the relationship that you have with your bank. You wake up one day and your money's gone, or part of your money's gone. Now, if you think that can't happen, go take a look at the island of Cyprus. Same time this was going on, 2014. What happened there? The banks went insolvent. What happened to the people? They took a haircut on anything above 100,000 euros in their accounts. Okay, I think they lost like I forget exactly what the number was, but it was like anything above 100,000 euros, they lost like half of it or something. So like the lower bank accounts were protected, but they, the reasoning was like, oh my God, this is going to be a catastrophe for the people of Cyprus. And they're like, yeah, it's mostly Russian mob money here anyway. Okay, well, so does that make it all right that you guys are stealing, because you're an insolvent bank? No, of course not. But you have to understand Cyprus. And, because otherwise you're like, oh, bail-ins. I mean, that's just theoretical. No, it's not theoretical. It's actually happened. It happened 10 years ago, and it'll happen again. It's going to happen again. You know why I know it's going to happen again? Because they fucking legalized it. That's why I know it's going to happen again. You don't have to speculate. You just have to watch what they're doing. And you have to listen to them too. Because if you listen to these lunatics talk long enough, they will tell you the plan. And when I get through this, I will explain to you where the head lunatic explains the plan. And it's like, well, how can we trust him? Well, look, you can't trust any of these people. Of course, that should go without saying. But listen to what they're talking about. Okay, so this is what the 2014 G20 bank bail-in law did. You listen to this, and just tell me if you think this sounds fair. They can impose the losses of insolvent financial institutions on their stockholders, debt holders, and other unsecured creditors, such as depositors, the largest group, meaning you. Okay? So again, they can impose the losses of insolvent financial institutions, bankrupt banks. They can take the losses of bankrupt banks and put them on their stockholders, debt holders, and unsecured creditors. Now, there's a pecking order between those, right? Stockholders, debt holders, and unsecured creditors are not created equal. If you're an unsecured creditor, like a depositor, like you and me in a bank, you are at the bottom of the list. You're in third position, which ain't great. Okay. Your best bet is that you have the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, back you up with your money, because the FDIC will protect you up to $250,000 of deposits, except that there's kind of a problem with the FDIC. Well, you're making an assumption that they're solvent too. They have, of all of the money in banks that the FDIC has basically their own little stash to make you whole if your bank falls apart. Of all the total money in the banks, the FDIC only has 1.6% of that. So if everything goes wrong, if there's a systemic banking collapse, they don't have enough to do it. If the branch manager disappears with some of the money, you're fine. But if your entire, if your regional bank goes bust, maybe. If all regional banks go bust or a dozen of them go, no. The FDIC has 1.6% of all dollars on hand. So they're not going, theoretically you'll get $1.60 on your $100 that you have deposited. But that is making the assumption that the FDIC still has that money because they took that 1.6 billion of deposits and they invested it in bonds, which are now upside down. So this firewall is going to fail as well. If you're thinking, well, yeah, there might be a banking collapse, but we've got the FDIC. I'm telling you right now, that firewall that you think is going to protect you is going to fail. And it'll fail in the first week. And that'll really freak people out. So part of this is like boring money, bank. It's not the most exciting thing. If you need a little thrill then to make this more exciting to you, just think of what the psychological impacts of this will be on society. When people realize their money is gone. What are they going to do? We've already seen poor behavior under the best of circumstances, like going to a Walmart on a Wednesday. That turns into an adventure. What if nothing works? What if your bank account has no money in it anymore? What if there's an entire month where they're trying to sort this whole thing out? What they do in this 2014 situation is that they say, yeah, of course, we can take your money and make these insolvent banks, a little bit less insolvent. But we're not going to just steal your money because that would be downright criminal. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to convert your money into stock in a bank that is currently insolvent because and it's currently insolvent because your money is being converted into bank stock because it's insolvent. So congratulations, you are now the proud owner of bank stock shares in a bank that's upside down. You have stock in a failing company, but you don't have your money. Now, again, if you think I'm making this up, I'm not. This is the law. This is written in the G20 bank bail-in law from 10 years ago. The language states that they will be bailing out, quote, depositors. I want you to think about this for a second. You go, oh, listen, they're bailing out depositors. I'm a depositor. They're bailing me out. No. See, considering that once the money is deposited in the bank account, it becomes the property of the banks. So when they're talking about depositors, they're actually talking about protecting the banks because they don't give a fuck about you as a depositor. Your deposit is what they're talking about. And your deposit is the property of the bank. So when they say they're going to help depositors, what they mean is the bank. They don't care about you. That should go without saying, right? So that's a huge problem. And what I say is you have to just look 10 years back and you'll see where this is. And it's coming, right? And I'll tell you why it's coming. And I'll tell you how it's coming. And 2 days before COVID, I guess officially, I don't know, when is the official birth of COVID? I thought I had it as like March 17th. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, March 15th, 2020, here in America, they reduced the reserve requirement ratio for banks. There was a reserve requirement ratio. It's like you have to have 5% of all deposits on hand. You have to have 10% of all deposits on hand. Whatever. There's a ratio, 1 to 10 or whatever, 1 to 20. I don't know, whatever the ratio was. It doesn't matter because on March 15th, 2020, they reduced the reserve requirement ratio down to 0%. So now the banks are not required to have any money in deposits. This action eliminated reserve requirements for all depository institutions. Now, I ask you, if you are trying to build a stable banking system, why would you do this? Again, there wasn't some law that was expiring on March 16th, forcing them to make some major change. They went out of their way to change this requirement. They went out of their way to make sure that the banks had no money. I mean, if you tell the banks you have to keep 10% in there, they'll keep 10% in there because they have to. If you tell the banks they don't have to keep 10% in there, they will keep zero. They will play this casino game as long as they can. You cannot expect these people to manage themselves. They're degenerate gamblers because there's no repercussions for their actions. If they lose your money. If they win, they keep the money. So they have no reason to start all of a sudden playing this safe. They've never done that before, and they will never do it again. And by the way, that $35 trillion of Federal Reserve debt, we're never paying it back. It's never getting paid back. They haven't come out and told us that yet, but you have to know that they're never paying that back. So bankers are irresponsible. They've been shown over the years that irresponsibility pays, that the bigger the crazy bets, the more beneficial it is to them. And part of the reason why they believe this is because they're sucked into this Federal Reserve System. So let's talk about this for a second, because if you go way back to 1927, which is a long, long, long time ago, there's something called the McFadden Act. And it gave national banks, meaning the ones that were tied to the Federal Reserve, the ability to cross state lines. But banks that weren't national banks, that were just state banks, they said you can't cross state lines because you're not part of the Federal Reserve System, right? So they were locked out of the system by the Fed. And this was in order to make it an unfair playing field so that Federal Reserve connected banks would dominate and anybody that wasn't Federal Reserve connected would go out of business, because they couldn't scale up their business large enough to make themselves national. Maybe they didn't want to be anything more than a state bank, but regardless, they couldn't leave the state. They choked them off. So I believe that small and medium-sized banks will be targeted just like they were in 1927. I have no reason to think that they won't be. I mean, think about it like this. You create a stampede. You create a bank run. In small and regional banks, right? Small and medium-sized banks, in like some bank that is in your region. You create a insolvency situation at one of those banks, maybe 3 of those banks. You do it all at the same time. You start a panic where it's like, well, I don't know if I'd keep my money in those small banks. Then what happens? What do you think the psychology of human beings would do? Everyone that's got their money in small banks would then be going, I don't think my bank is fine today, but I just watched these other banks just go out of business. I don't think I want to. I know they'll protect the money if it's at Citibank, because we know those scumbags are tied in with Washington. They'll protect them no matter what. Maybe I should pull my money out of this small bank and put it in a big bank, because at least I know it'll be safe there, because those guys are criminals that are working with the criminals in Washington, D.C., but at least they'll protect each other and my money will be protected. That'll be the mentality, right? That'll be the logical thinking. Small banks are teetering. They're a target. They're potentially all going to go. I don't want to be the last guy to figure this out. I pull my money out of the small bank. I put it in the big bank. What does that do? It accelerates the process, creates a feedback loop. People pulling their deposits out of small banks, and that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And of course, all that money flows into the big banks, making them stronger. And simultaneously, wiping out their competition by it's a zero-sum game. You take your money out of a small bank and put it in a big bank. Small bank loses, big bank gains. This is where we're going. Let's talk about, I said I'd tell you what the plan is. We found the plan. You're not going to like it, but we found it for the future of this. And I'm telling you right now that this is how they plan to gain control of the world. You can do it with tanks. You can do it with nuclear weapons. You can do it with all that stuff. Or you can do it with banks. And I'm telling you, I think this is how they're going to do it. Bank of International Settlements is unveiling something known as a universal ledger. Okay. And this is key. Whoever runs the universal ledger at the Bank of International Settlements runs the world. And that's no exaggeration. They will control all of the money because they will control the ledger framework on which the central bank digital currencies move on. This is the framework that they control, something called the universal ledger. And when you hear about this, you will rightly freak out. Okay. The fat guy from the Monty Python movies, just waffle thins, the guy that blows up in the restaurant, may or may not be Augustin Carstens, the Director General of the Bank of International Settlements. You might have seen him before. I mean, if central, the cartoonish central banker, big fat central banker who's stuffing money into his face, that's this guy. I have no problem making fun of his personal physical appearance because he's the head of the head central bank. So fuck this guy, and I don't care. He's 500 pounds and disgusting. He's a disgusting banker in every way that you can be. But he said this on camera in a shocking moment of terrifying honesty. I presume he was sober. I don't know. But this is what he said. So listen, when the head of the central bank, the head of the central bank of all central banks says something like this, you might want to pay attention because he would know. This is what he said. The key difference with central bank digital currencies is the central bank will have absolute control of the rules and the regulations that will determine the use of that expression, meaning money, of central bank liability. He's telling you the plan. The central bank will have absolute control of the rules and regulations. Now, we've talked about this a ton. We've said that they will have control of the rules and regulations. And maybe you believe me and maybe you didn't. And maybe you needed more confirmation in order to form an opinion on this. And that's cool. And I respect that. Take as much time as you need to get your head around this so that you understand it. But I just need you to know that the head of the biggest central bank in the world is telling you that central bank digital currencies will give them absolute control. They're counting on that. They want that. This is what they're going for. It's not like, oh, well, we're flattered that you would impose such a tremendous responsibility on us, and we humbly accept, and we will do our best to be good stewards of this. No, fuck all that stuff. They want control of the money so that they can control you. That's the plan. They're telling you the plan. Sometimes they lie. Most of the times they lie. Sometimes they actually tell you the plan. It's hard to know what's different, except that you wouldn't tell people this if you were just bullshitting. This was a message not to us. This was a message to the other central bankers. This was a message to the banking industry. So why the universal ledger for the Bank of International Settlements? Well, I'll tell you why. This is what you get with it. You get a cashless society, which they speak openly about now. Now they're in the banking business and it's been cash and wire transfers for a long, long time. But now all of a sudden, we saw during COVID, COVID lives on cash and cash is dirty and it's a relic of the past and nobody needs it anymore except that we do and except that you should never go away from your cash. But they want a cashless society in part because they, a variety of reasons, but one is that they want to see what you're spending your money on. They want to control it and they want to make sure you can't spend it on things that are outside of their control. Like if you want to buy a gun and they have central bank digital currencies programmed in a way that you can't ever buy a gun with them, then if cash is an option, then you'll just buy the gun with cash, right? So they can't have that and they want to go away with it. And so they'll sell it to you every way that they can. It's for your safety and everything, because cash is so dangerous. And only drug dealers use it, except that, the United States sends more of it overseas than anything. So, they'll do all the things that they have to do to try and make you think that cash is dirty and that you're a terrorist or a drug dealer for using it. But the truth is, it's just a real problem for them. And so to go to a cashless society is extremely important. And you have to sort of find this fine line between getting on board with the technology, the direction technology is going, and understanding that currencies are going digital. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, as long as the programmability of your digital currency is set in stone, like something like Bitcoin that can't be changed due to the protocol, as opposed to a central bank digital currency, which is programmable, which is like, it's part of it's not a bug, it's a feature. That they want it programmable. So that's part of it. Centralization of monetary power and decision-making, of course, that's part of what this universal ledger does. It centralizes everything. It's a universal ledger. And they'll say everything's out in the open. No, everything is out in the open for them. Nothing is out in the open for you. You have no control. They have all the control. So they are starting the process of demonization of the usage of decentralized payments. And they do that by calling them risky. They say, oh, they're risky because they're not actually risky. They're just risky because the central banks can't control it. So, decentralized payments being like credit cards, crypto, cash, things like that. Things that aren't or sort. I don't know if credit cards are the best example of decentralized payments, but they won't control it. Is what I mean. And this universal ledger that the BIS is putting forward allows the central bank digital currencies to be tracked, because this is the rail system. Think of it like CBDCs are the train and the universal ledger is the tracks that the train will ride on. If you control the tracks, you essentially control the trains too, right? You can control all kinds of things about it. You can control who gets on the train. You might even physically be able to control who gets on the train now with the central bank digital currencies and tied into a social credit system. We're going to get to that in a second. There's more. When we wrap up, I want to tell you what scumbag Mark Carney has planned for the world, and it's not great either. But I don't say this to freak everybody out and make you fearful. I say it because if you know what they're doing, then you can plan accordingly. So I think we should just be aware of this. They don't really like this stuff getting talked about too much. So when the BIS starts saying, going on and on and on about this universal ledger and how it's going to be such a great thing for humanity, when you hear about this in the future and you go, oh yeah, I heard about this. This crazy guy was talking about it once on a podcast, and now I see it everywhere. What is universal ledger? It sounds like, oh, everybody's going to be able to see it's just going to be like Bitcoin, right? No, it's blockchain. It's going to be fully transparent. Oh, nope. No, it is not. No. Do not fall into that trap. Don't get confused. I'll tell you what it's going to be like. It's going to be like a new SWIFT banking system where you can, where it can be weaponized and used politically. The way it's set up now, if you remember with the Russia-Ukraine situation, when Russia went into Ukraine, one of the things that the American sanctions did was it took Russia off of the SWIFT banking system, which is, it's a clearinghouse for international wires, and all the international wires are routed through New York at some point. And if you're on the wrong side of the American government, they can throw you off the SWIFT banking system, so you can't participate in international transactions because you don't have the ability to wire your payments in the way that the rest of the world is set up to accept them. So they put you outside. They put you at the kids' table with North Korea and Iran and places like that. Well, Russia just figured out a way around it because they knew that this was going that direction anyway. So, but a universal ledger that the BIS controls would act as a de facto SWIFT banking system too. Because if you get on the wrong side of them, they just turn you off. It's no different than SWIFT. So it will be used politically and politically by the BIS, which means globalist. You have to understand that this is coming out of Switzerland. We just did a show on Switzerland talking about the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, working with the World Economic Forum in Davos, working with the United Nations in Geneva. I mean, it's all there, right? And so if you get on the wrong side of these people and they control the universal ledger, they just take you off of it or turn your money off. And this is how they'll do it. They'll have full control. Think about this. Also, if you're the BIS and you can watch where all these CBDCs are being spent, who's got them, how much they've got, and what they're spending it on, can you imagine the massive amount of data on behavior, spending behavior, that the BIS would have? They could probably make $1 trillion a year selling this data to corporations. It would be my guess. You're Procter & Gamble or Johnson & Johnson. You want to find out how many people buy your detergent and why they buy it and when they buy it and what time of day they buy it and who buys it. Is it the husband? Is it the wife? The amount of marketing and advertising decisions that could be made based on the information that is collected on how the money is actually spent would be so valuable to these corporations that the BIS would be sitting on an informational goldmine. They don't really care. They make money out of thin air. So it's not like they really worry about making money. It's not as much as they are overwhelmingly focused on control. But if there's one thing I know about bankers, they're not going to pass up an opportunity to also make money while building the framework for control at the same time. So, they'll know everything about your spending habits. They'll be able to shut you off certain things. I mean, we've gone down this path. Climate change is killing everybody. You can't buy red meat anymore. You can only buy, 5 gallons of gas a week. You're shut off from more than that because, the environment, climate, all those things. So just allow your imagination to go wherever it needs to. If you think that Augustin Carstens is going to be in charge of overseeing what you do with your money, a guy that can't control his own weight, a guy who is so morbidly obese that he has shown a complete and utter lack of self-control. You think that guy's going to be good with your money? You think he gives a shit about how your money is best being used? No. So that's why I say centralizing money through the BIS and through this universal ledger means that the BIS will run the world. They'll run it financially. Down the street in Geneva, the World Health Organization will run it from a top-down authoritarian model based on climate change, which is now a pandemic, and pandemic preparedness. So if the BIS wants to turn off your money, they turn it off. Okay. Let's stay in Switzerland with the IMF. And let's talk about something. Have you ever heard of this? This is not a new concept. They have something called IMF special drawing rights. It's a basket of currencies. It's not one currency. It's a hodgepodge of a variety pack of currencies, right? You take a dozen of them, put them in a so-called basket, put it in a group, and then you use that as like a reserve currency, right? Now the IMF special drawing rights is going after a basket of digital currencies, CBDCs, plus what they call legacy currencies, which is dollars and euros and things like that. So they're building out something that is called IMF's XC platform. That is, it's really more policy than anything else. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, created at Bretton Woods back in 1945, along with the World Bank. The IMF and World Bank are owned and controlled by the Rockefellers. They were started by the Rockefellers, just so you know. So it's not some some international banking establishment. No, it's just David Rockefeller. Just think of it like that. Just think of David Rockefeller's big international bank, the IMF and the World Bank that they created, wants to be in charge of digital currencies. You can read about this if you're an insomniac and you're having trouble sleeping at night. I can send you to imf.org and you can find an article that's called Exploring Cross-Border and Domestic Payment and Contracting Platforms. I've read it. It's pretty dry, but it will give you an understanding about what they have planned, what the IMF's platform is, what their plan is for it in the future, right? And how the BIS is going to be the rails and the IMF is going to be the rules, okay? So they're going to set up the framework of how and why and the legality of it all, and the BIS is going to be worried more about building out the infrastructure and whatnot. Israel's CBDC system will support applying interest to the digital shekel. Of course. Of course. Really? First thing you guys thought to do was make sure you could charge interest? Holy shit. Thailand's CBDC system was bribing the public for support by airdropping, basically sending free money, which was 10,000 baht, which is like the equivalent of like $300, to get poor people on the new government system. They were just like, it's a very, like, Thailand is, it's a beautiful place, man. The people are so nice there. But there is a huge, very poor population, very rural in some areas as you get outside of the city. And they're unbanked, like a lot of people are, like a lot of like countries that are economically challenged. There's when you don't have a whole lot of money, like the cost of opening a bank account and keeping that bank account on a monthly, the monthly fees for it, they don't make sense. So you have a lot of people that are unbanked. If you go to India, there's a lot of daily use thing. You don't go buy laundry detergent that'll last you a month. You buy laundry detergent that'll last you one use. It's like a small box. Everything's like individual size because there's not a whole lot of money. And so with Thailand, they're like, well, listen, we've got an unbanked population, very poor. Let's see if we can get them into the central bank digital currency game by giving them free money. And here's the thing, as I've said before, the mice get stuck in the mousetrap because they can't understand why the cheese is free. Okay. So you have to be very suspicious when the government is giving out free cheese. Maybe literally free cheese back in like the US back in the 40s, or the proverbial free cheese, which they're giving away in the form of central bank digital currencies. We've talked about this, the carrot and the stick. This is the carrot portion of the show, where you go, hey, we're just going to airdrop you, $300 and go use it for all. I mean, would an unbanked, economically challenged Thai guy living out in a small town appreciate an extra 10,000 baht that he didn't have to do anything for? Hell yeah, he would. But you also have to get them onto this digital system, and that requires lubricant, right? And apparently in Thailand, the lubricant is 10,000 baht. That'll get you on. But this hasn't worked. It didn't work in Nigeria. They tried this in Nigeria. They tried it a couple different ways. They tried to remove cash in Nigeria, and the people went apeshit. They tried to impose a central bank digital currency, the e-Naira, and people said, we're not interested in this. It had half of 1% uptake. Bitcoin is running at about 33% uptake. With anywhere from 30 to 40% of the people in Nigeria are just transacting in Bitcoin because it's easier. But that's the direction that this is going. When you give out free government money in the form of CBDCs, there's a reason for it. They want you on this system. They want to know, especially the poor people that they can't keep track of because they're unbanked. They've just been like ghosts to the system for a long time, and they want them accounted for financially. And in doing so, as far as the government is concerned, it might be worth it for them to just give these people not even just a one-time amount, but like monthly, just pay them a universal basic income. Not because you care about them, but because it incentivizes them to get on the system. And these are people that have never been a part of the system, and now you can get them on the system, and now you know who they are. And so the way the governments and central banks look at this isn't like we're going to lose money on it. It's an investment. They're investing in pulling people onto the system. That UBI, it's fucking digital money anyway. It doesn't count. They just manufacture it. So it doesn't cost them anything to give that out. So that's the direction we're going. So let's talk a little bit about what a central bank digital currency limitation system might look like, because the IMF's talking about it and the BIS is talking about it. So we should be talking about it too. We should be talking about what that looks like. And to be fair, we have been. We've been talking about what that looks like in terms of limitations to your usage of it. So limits on the balance amount that can be held in a wallet, in a digital wallet. Let's say, so we're talking about we're going to make it up. We're going to talk about the Fed coin now, right? United States Central Bank Federal Reserve Fed coin. And this is a hypothetical situation, so this isn't actually real, but we're speculating here. So you've got a Fed coin, and these are the sorts of things that you can do with it. These are the sorts of things that they intend to do with it. And the reason why I know they intend to do this with it is because they're already talking about it. So again, I'm not speculating about what they could do with it. I'm speculating that they'll, which one of these they'll actually use. But just so you know, they are talking about all of these. They could use one of them. They could use all of them. I don't know. Limits on the balance amount that can be held in a digital wallet. You'll own nothing. The reason why you'll own nothing is because you will have a limit on the balance that you can have in your wallet. So if you want to save up for that car, you can't. Let's say the balance the maximum you can have is in your wallet is 15,000 Federal Reserve coins. But cars are expensive these days, and cars are like 25,000 Fed coins. You can never get one because your wallet is capped unless you, I don't know. There will be workarounds, I'm sure. People at Anarchapulco will find ways around this, I assure you. But you know what I'm saying. When Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing, it's not because you're going to choose to own nothing. It's because the system will be set up in a way, if they get it their way, which I don't think they will, but if they get it the way they want it, you'll own nothing because you can never save. They talk about CBDC limitations, geofencing them by location. We talked about 15-minute cities before. 15-minute cities, you go, oh, you've got everything in this city you want. Yeah, maybe if you live in a big city where you can walk to everything. But otherwise, 15-minute city. What if I want to go 16 minutes? What if I'm an outlaw? I'm a rebel and I want to go 19 minutes outside of my city. Well, here's the thing. That's fine. Maybe you can, but your money won't work. So they know where you are. And we're going to get to that in the when I wrap this up. I'll get to why they'll know where you are. But they'll know where you are. They'll know where you live. They'll know where you're supposed to be in your 15-minute city, and drop a pin on your location and map out a 15-minute radius, and that's the extent that your money will work. Your money will work there. Somebody else's money will work where they live, but same rules apply. 15-minute radius within their if they live in Oregon, maybe 15 minutes. Maybe they give you a little bit extra space if you are out in the countryside somewhere. Maybe you're in a 60-minute city, right? It works 60 minutes outside because you have to drive further or whatever. I don't know. But they can set it by location, distance away. They just put you on a geofence and say it works within this fenced-in area, whatever that fenced-in area looks like. They can limit you by the number of transactions you conduct per day. They can limit you by the number of FedCoin dollars that you spend per day. Can't spend more than 75 a day. Yeah, but I gotta get that. Nope. Sorry, you're capped. You're gonna have to wait. You have another 23 hours and 45 minutes until you can get that, man. You have to wait till your card resets tomorrow. Then you can spend another 75. You know what I mean? This is the world in which they're discussing. Of course, where you can shop, what you can buy: red meat, guns, bullets, gold, silver, Bitcoin, airplane tickets, you name it. Whatever is subversive, they'll just make it so that your money doesn't work there. They can turn off the wallet when it is, quote, outside the permitted scope. Pretty vague, huh? What is the permitted scope of my wallet? I'm sure it'll be buried in page 75 of the terms and conditions that you sign up for when you get it, right? They can set it so that it has an expiration date. Get to spending. Your savings account is about to expire. You got 3 more days, but I don't want to buy. You better buy something. Better buy something that you can trade with your friends. Saw this recently happening at Wendy's. The fast food chain was talking about this. They made a pre-announcement. It did not go well, but they talked about dynamic pricing. Do you know what that is? That is pricing that changes on a minute-to-minute, second-by-second basis. Dynamic pricing, surge pricing. Think of it like Uber, right? When you're out, you leave a concert and all of a sudden the prices are like 3 times what they were if you were just standing on that street corner, 3 days from now when there's not a concert going on. So it's Wendy's. They're saying, well, we're going to have dynamic pricing. So it's like, oh, you mean so during lunchtime it's more expensive? So I have to go get my chili and cheeseburger at 4:00 in the afternoon when I really desperately want to eat it at noon, but I can't because the price is 30% more expensive. That sort of dynamic pricing, yeah, get ready for it because it's coming. And CBDCs will have to adjust accordingly to it. And of course, that'll all be run by AI, where they'll just feed information in to the history of who orders cheeseburgers at what time, and they'll know exactly when the peak hour is, and that thing will change automatically. You don't have to worry about some dipshit at the cash register putting in the wrong number, because there won't be any dipshits working the cash register. They'll all be touch screens, and the price will not be something that you can ask to see the manager to get fixed. They'll just say, well, this is the price it is today, right now. You don't want to pay that price for your double cheeseburger? Well, then come back in 3 hours. Might be less. So dynamic pricing is coming. Look, full transparency with these coins, for better or for worse. They will know everything that you're buying. They'll know when you went to the store and bought something that is incompatible with what you normally buy. Alarm bells will go off. Maybe they'll just discount things in order to, incentivize you to buy certain items that you don't need. But again, like when you think of dynamic pricing for something like Wendy's, it's innocuous when it's Wendy's, right? It's a cheeseburger that may cost 30 cents more depending on when you go. But dynamic pricing is a huge ass deal when we're talking about healthcare and life insurance, okay? When when your life insurance policy company, the company that you have a life insurance policy with, when they start buying this data to take a look at their customers, to figure out who they're actually working with, and they start to see, holy shit, this guy's buying Marlboro Reds and Ding Dongs and Mountain Dew, we're going to have to triple his premium. This guy should be dead already, or healthcare. Oh, this guy's got diabetes. You've got diabetes. You're in our healthcare system. You know you have diabetes. We know you have diabetes, and you're buying 2 liters of Cokes at the grocery store. We've quadrupled your healthcare premium. How dare you know better than to do this, right? Now that's a scenario in which they would be actually looking out for your health. That ain't gonna happen. It might be an incorrect scenario, because in that scenario, the healthcare provider actually wants you to do what's best for your health, and we all know that that's not the case. But just allow yourself to go there, right? Dynamic pricing for healthcare and life insurance and all that stuff. Boy, I'll tell you, CBDCs are not the way to go. And there's going to be a lot of confusion around this as, look, I wrote a book with Jeff Berwick 6 years ago. We started working on that. So when and he runs a company called the Dollar Vigilante and the Crypto Vigilante, right? So whether you want it or not, you pick up a thing or two over the years by being around the crypto crowd, right? I am no expert in cryptocurrencies, and let me be fair. And I'm not giving investment advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own research, come up with your own ideas. But I think it needs to be said because I know it's going to try to get conflated. Crypto is not all the same. Okay, you're going to hear that term, but within that term, there's a very big variety, okay? Central bank digital currencies is a form of cryptocurrency in the same way that Bitcoin is and Ethereum and Monero are a form of cryptocurrency, but they are not the same, okay? So when someone says CBDC, Bitcoin, Monero, Ethereum, crypto, same, what's the difference? Huge difference, massive, gigantic difference, right? Bitcoin is a totally separate animal from all of this. Capped supply, 21 million, secure network. There is no CEO. There's no manager that Karen can go speak to. You can't talk to the manager of Bitcoin. It doesn't exist. It's a digital asset, according to Michael Saylor. It's digital money, according to some people that you talk to. It is volatile. It's very volatile. But you're starting to see institutional adoption. That could be a good thing. That could be a bad thing. There's a lot of ways to go with this, and this is not going to be a full Bitcoin episode or anything like that. But I just want to make sure that people understand that there is a difference between this, and don't allow crypto to all get lumped into the same thing. I mean, at some point, with Bitcoin is like a monetization of energy as well. It's going to be priced at some point, maybe not even in dollars, but priced in energy. Bitcoin per sats per kilowatt or something like that. I mean, because you're talking about storable form of representation of digital energy. The way we think about money in the future will change a lot. And I think that Bitcoin will become part of that. I think if you're somebody that hears these messages about how dangerous the banks are and you say, I want to become my own bank, I would strongly encourage you to take a listen. Go find a Michael Saylor from MicroStrategies speech that he gives, or listen to Kathy Wood from ARK talk about it and hear what they talk about. These are people that have put billions and billions and billions of dollars of money into it, and they understand it in a way that I can't because they've studied it more than I have. But I think you need to consider looking into it, along with gold and silver and these things. And I fully recognize that you're not going to be able to go buy a loaf of bread with gold, but we're talking about a bet against the system. The system is broken. The system is in the process of being totally remade into a dystopian hellscape. You've got to get yourself outside of that system as best as you can. You have to own things that have value, assets, gold, silver, land, whatever, something, bullets, vodka. I don't give a shit. Whatever it is, you have to have something that has value. And these central bank digital currencies, they have no value, and they're going to be massively controlled. And as you see crypto, or you see the sort of normalization of crypto, that can be a good thing for people that are into the Bitcoin space and Monero, and you're starting to see Ethereum maybe get an ETF sometime soon. You're starting to see countries starting. Obviously, it started with banks. Banks are starting to buy these ETFs. BlackRock and ARK and whatnot are starting to jump into this. Now you're going to see international ETFs. Last I read, Hong Kong was looking to get on board with this. We'll see if that happens. You're going to eventually get to a point where sovereign wealth funds are getting on board with this. Corporations are starting to store some of their dollars instead of putting it in a bank, which is dangerous. And even they know that. Instead, they're saying, I'm just going to hold some of this cash that we've got in Bitcoin just in case. Just it's a vote against the system. Maybe it goes up. Maybe it just doesn't go down. Maybe it doesn't get inflated away at 18% a year like it is right now. So maybe we move it out. I don't know. Look, do your own homework on this stuff. I'm not here to be a salesman for Bitcoin or anything like that, but I do like a lot of it. I do like the math behind it. Frankly, I like everything I see about it, except there's some irrational exuberance. I think that the people that understand it on like a very hardcore level understand it's not going anywhere. Let's talk about this. Let's kind of wrap up with, I said I would mention Mark Carney. He's awful. And I want you to understand he's awful, of course, that should go without saying, but he's also well-connected and he knows what he's talking about because he's in there doing it. He's making it. He's a Knight of Malta, of course, who was the governor of the Bank of England, which is like running the Federal Reserve. It's like what Jerome Powell is in the US. He's the head of the Federal Reserve, the American central bank, while Mark Carney was the head of the British central bank. And he's a Knight of Malta, which is not good. He's a Trilateral Commission member. He's a World Economic Forum Board of Trustees member. He's a Council for Inclusive Capitalism. He's the chairman. He was the chairman of the Financial Stability Board. We talked about that. That's one of the most powerful positions in the world. He's a super dangerous banker technocrat who's at all the Bilderberg meetings and came out of Goldman Sachs. He's every bit of a swamp creature, as you would think he is. And he has something called 3 pillars of the new multipolar world. And this is why I think it's important to understand what these guys are saying, because then you'll understand what the plan is. And here is the plan. It's 3-pronged. This is according to Mark Carney, a guy that would know. First part, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, programmable money that the Bank for International Settlements controls. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, ESG, environmental, social, and governance. This is climate change. This is everybody's trans. This is we have to be in charge of managing the social cohesion of the world, and we're going to do that by modifying behavior and making everybody think that carbon dioxide is killing the world, and so therefore we have to pay a carbon tax to the banks that they control, that Mark Carney will control. And the third pillar, CBDC is number 1, ESG is number 2. You know how I love acronyms. Number 3 is the digital ID. Okay, so it's very important that they get the digital ID passed because it is one of the 3 pillars here. ESG is struggling. Okay. I say this because there's weakness here. There's weakness with ESG. There's weakness with central bank digital currencies. They're not rolling out as smoothly as they would like them to. And so I mentioned the 3 pillars, not as like it's over, throw your hands up, we're all going to be living in a micro apartment, eating the bugs and owning nothing. No, I don't think that. I think that these guys couldn't get COVID off the ground. Now they're trying to do 4 COVIDs, essentially, or 3 COVIDs, a CBDC, ESG, and digital ID all at once. These are all things that are incompatible with humanity, much like the COVID vaccine push was. And so when you're trying to convince humanity to get on board with something that is operating against their own self-interest, you have to lie to them. You have to create false narratives and fake nonsense to get them to believe a different way. You have to scare them, and they will scare you. That is part of what they do. So I tell you about the 3 pillars, not to make you scared, but to make you aware of what they've got coming. So when you hear digital ID, you go, oh, it's just like I have a driver's license in my wallet. It's like a digital version of that. No, it's worse. It's a million times worse. So keep your eyes out on the digital ID, ESG, CBDC. Because this is the foundation upon which the carbon tax system will run. Okay. They know who you are, digital ID. They know how much carbon you produce, ESG, because they know what you buy, CBDC. Makes sense, right? They then deduct your carbon taxes through the CBDC, and you don't have to do anything, right? We have noticed on your carbon, your MasterCard that your green MasterCard, we'll call it. I forget what the name of it is, but MasterCard is a partner of the World Economic Forum, and they've already created a credit card that is tracking and quantifying carbon as a way of measuring it. They haven't limited your purchases with MasterCard yet, but the first thing they need to do is quantify everything and measure it, and so that then they can come up with some sort of scoring, and then all that stuff will start. All of the rationing and limitations will be put on it at some point. So if you want to find out more information about this, again, like if you think that I'm just some lunatic that's pulling this stuff out of my ass, you might be right about the lunatic part, but I am not, most certainly not pulling this out of my ass. I assure you, you can go find something called the Genesis Project. And this is how the Climate Agenda registered trademark connects to the financial markets, okay? It's very important that you understand that the Climate Agenda needs to connect to the financial markets, okay? Through these 3 pillars, that's part of how it works. CBDC, ESG, digital ID. We know who you are, we know how much you're polluting, and we're taxing you on it. And you don't have any say in any of that because we're watching you. We can take the money out of your account whenever we want, because remember, it's programmable. You're going to start to see things like green bonds. This is Whitney Webb sent me an article saying, why aren't more people talking about this? There's the United Nations is in Belize doing green bond. I love Belize. I don't want the United Nations anywhere near Belize, but they're already there doing something called green bonds. So you can just, we'll get it. We'll do a show. I'll do a show with Whitney later about that, where she can just sort of drill down on it because she knows it way better than I do. Carbon quotas, carbon credits, all of this stuff is part of the Genesis Project. It's an international marketplace for carbon credits. That's the plan. So this is it. This is the reality of the situation. Okay. I know that banking isn't the most exciting thing, but you got to pay attention to it because these people are making moves right now. The dollar's reserve currency status is most definitely at risk right now. When that goes, you want to talk about an overnight change in the living standard of the United States. Holy shit. Those dollars, the way this works is so 60% of all US dollars are outside of the United States. 25% of the US debt that we have, that $35 trillion debt that we have, 25% of that is owned by foreign countries. They're owned by foreigners, right? So we're interconnected internationally here, right? We've got a quarter of our debt is owned by people outside of the U.S. 60% of all dollars are already outside of the U.S. The number one bill that the United States produces, the number one most popular bill is the $100 bill. Most people would assume it was the $1 bill. It is not. It's the $100 bill, and they're all sitting in vaults or in some Al-Qaeda base in a duffel bag that we've given them. I don't know. I mean, they're somewhere, right? The interest, and by the way, when you lose the world's reserve currency, meaning that things aren't all priced in dollars, the petrodollar arrangement goes away, perhaps, that you don't have to convert your yuan into dollars in order to buy oil. You can buy it in yuan, right? Once the dollar becomes unnecessary as for completing an oil transaction or completing a banking transaction, once it becomes not unnecessary, then it becomes unvaluable. It's as simple as that. And you will see hyperinflation inside America. You will see inflation's already happening now, but it'll go parabolic. And America won't know how to deal with that. It will be a shock to the system. And you don't need that in your life, right? So just plan accordingly. You don't have to make a big deal about it with your family. You don't have to freak everybody out. You don't have to sit them down at the dining room table and say, we're in real trouble, right? Just quietly, calmly start planning differently. Start doing things that you wouldn't, start thinking about think about reevaluating your relationship with the bank. That's the nicest way I can put it, because the interest on the U.S. debt has gone from $1.1 trillion, which is a lot, to now $1.6 trillion. And that number isn't getting any lower anytime soon. We're going to get to a point where it becomes obvious to everybody that we're never paying this debt. That's, so there it is, everybody. That's what can start the great bank run of 2024. Plan accordingly. If you like this episode, you can take the additional step right now of sharing it with your friends and family. If you want to connect with me, macroaggressions.io is the best place to do that. The audiobook. Go buy the audiobook, for God's sake. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you again later.